A few days ago, I was scrolling through YouTube and I noticed that a devastating earthquake hit Venezuela. And I know a lot of you guys have already heard about this. And I want to say first and foremost, my thoughts and prayers go out to the people who were affected by this particular earthquake. Seeing homes and buildings damaged, families displaced, communities trying to recover, I'm telling you, it's heartbreaking. It was hard for me just to watch some of the clips that I was seeing on YouTube. You know, them digging people out of the rubble. It's just heartbreaking. And my heart goes out to those people, sincerely, because I could imagine what that feels like being in that type of situation. As I was scrolling and watching all these clips, it had me thinking, if a major earthquake hit Dominican Republic, would you actually know what to do? And listen, I'm not trying to scare anybody with this video. As a matter of fact, it's the complete opposite. Because one of the things I've tried to do with this channel is prepare people what living abroad can actually look like. Not the beaches, not the lower cost of living, not the cafes, not the palm trees, and certainly not the women, but the reality of what it's like to actually build a life in another country. Because every place has its pros and every place has its challenges. And one thing I know after living here for 5 years, paradise doesn't mean perfection. So today I want to have a real conversation about earthquakes in Dominican Republic, what I've experienced, what I've learned, and what I would do if a major earthquake were to happen tomorrow. But first, let me say what I always tell people. Stop trying to find the perfect country, because it does not exist. When I lived in the United States, depending on where you live, you dealt with different things. In the Midwest, people worry about tornadoes. Up north, people worry about blizzards. Down in Miami, South Florida, or the south part of the country, people worry about hurricanes. People in California, they think about earthquakes. And just because you move to Dominican Republic, that doesn't mean you're gonna eliminate natural disasters. It just simply changes the type of natural disaster you think about. I'll give you an example. When I was growing up in Mobile, we worried about hurricanes. We had several hurricanes that came through, tore the city up, put us in shelters. So I am very, very familiar with hurricanes. Then when I moved up to Huntsville, Alabama, during my college years, I didn't have to worry about hurricanes anymore. Hurricanes don't typically travel that far. But what I did have to worry about up there were tornadoes, which were even scarier to me than hurricanes. So then I left Huntsville, moved to the Dominican Republic, but let's discount the first trip to Dominican Republic, but moved back to Florida. Then I had to worry about hurricanes all over again, because hurricanes are something that you typically worry about in Florida every year. And so now when I moved back to Dominican Republic the second time, I still have hurricanes on my radar. And you really don't hear people talk about this type of stuff much. What you do see people doing is they would research for months about rent, healthcare, residency, internet speed, what are the best neighborhoods, but nobody asks, what type of natural disasters happen here? What would I do if something happened here? I know these don't sound like exciting questions, but they are important ones. I'll never forget my first earthquake here. I was laying on the couch right here in front of me one afternoon. Out of nowhere, the building started swaying. Not violently shaking, but swaying. We have a lot of construction going on in this area, so I thought, well, maybe it's just a heavy construction. And for a split second, I even questioned myself. Dude, you tripping. And then I'm thinking, am I dizzy? But then I'm like, nah, I ain't dizzy. I'm saying to myself, the entire building is moving. And remember, I'm from Alabama. And I just mentioned, this is not something that I had to deal with growing up there. So when it happened, I'm gonna be honest, it scared me. And not because it was a huge earthquake, because it wasn't. What scared me is I had no idea what I was supposed to do in that situation. Should I run? Should I stay? Should I get under something? Should I run downstairs? You know, everything people tell you after the earthquake happened suddenly becomes real hard to remember when it's actually happening. Thankfully, it only lasted a short time. Life went back to normal. People started texting, hey, did you feel that? And some Dominicans seemed completely unfazed. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, what in the world just happened? This building was moving. And since then, I've experienced several small, minor earthquakes. Matter of fact, I experienced one about 3 days ago. We had some people upstairs working on our AC. They was putting in our AC. Right when they were coming down the stairs, there was two guys stumping real hard on the steps, and then the building was, it started moving. And I'm like, they can't be stumping that hard. And then I realized that it was a small earthquake. The building had started to sway a little bit side to side. And then a day later, my daughter came down and said, "Poppy, did you feel the earthquake?" I was like, "Yeah, I felt it." But I didn't tell anybody at the time because I wasn't really sure. But then it's like I experienced them before and I just felt like, yeah, that's a little earthquake. But she didn't feel it, but I did. Now when they happen, I'm a little bit more calmer. Not because I don't think they're serious, but after experiencing several minor ones, the way you react just changes. Here's what makes earthquakes so unique. With hurricanes, you got days to prepare. You watch the weather, you board up windows, buy water, fill your car with gas, charge up your batteries. You have time. Earthquakes, they don't work that way. They don't send you an invitation. There isn't a countdown. There isn't an alert that tells you have 6 hours to prepare. Sometimes you might just have 6 seconds, or even worse, none at all. And that's why preparation matters so much, not after the earthquake, but before it happens. Here's something I realized after moving here. We prepare financially. Most of us save our money. We do research on healthcare, find apartments, open bank accounts, apply for residency, buy furniture, and some of us even try to learn Spanish. But almost nobody prepares for emergencies. Think about it. If a major earthquake happened, do you know where your passport is? How long would it take you to find it? I know mine used to be buried in a drawer somewhere. Now everything I have that's important, it stays together. Passport, residency paperwork, insurance documents, emergency contacts, copies of important documents. Because if something happens, that's not the time where you need to start looking for those things. I'm not saying you need to become a survivor expert, but what I'm saying is we need to exercise common sense. So here's some of the things I want nearby me in case of an emergency. A flashlight, because power outages happen. A battery bank, because your phone can become very valuable in a time when there's no power. Water, basic first aid supplies, extra medication if you take any, cash, which is very important. People forget about this one because if the power goes down, the ATMs are not working, credit card machines may not work. Remember, internet may not be available. And right then and there, cash becomes really important. And here's one that surprised me when I was reading up about how to prepare for an earthquake, is keeping your shoes on the side of your bed. You know why? Because broken glass causes a lot of injuries after an earthquake. And walking barefoot is not something you want to do. Just those little things like that can make a huge difference. Now let's talk about the moment itself. If you are inside, advice from emergency experts are pretty consistent about what you should do. Drop, cover, hold on, cover your head and cover your neck. Stay away from the windows and don't run outside while everything is still shaking. And that one there surprised me because our first instinct is to peel out, is to run. That's our first instinct. I know that'll be my first instinct, man. Let me get out of here. If you're driving, pull over somewhere safe. Stay inside the building until the shaking stops. If you're near a coastal line, like we are here in Santo Domingo, and a strong earthquake occurs, you want to pay attention to the news and the weather because earthquakes can trigger a tsunami. And they did have a tsunami warning after the earthquake in Venezuela, right here in Santo Domingo. They told us to be prepared. And that's another thing that I never had to worry about living in Alabama or South Florida, a tsunami. But again, the goal isn't fear. The goal is preparation. And here's another thing that is just as important as flashlights and water. You know what that is? I talk about it all the time. Community. Living here has taught me that your community should be part of your emergency plan. You guys already know when I had my episode almost 2 years ago, one of the reasons I feel I survived that episode is because of the community that I had on deck. My wife was able to call her family members because she was not even in town. And they came to my rescue and got me the help that I needed. So you have to ask yourself, if something happened to you tomorrow, who's gonna check on you? Who has your phone number? Who knows where you live? Who could help you if the communication systems were down? And one of the biggest things I see people do, and I think it's a mistake when they move abroad, is they try to do everything alone. And I understand why, but it's not a good strategy. And that's why I've always encouraged people, when you come here, build relationships, especially you're in a foreign country, you want to build relationships. No man is an island by himself. And not because building relationships are nice, I think building relationships are necessary. Community matters probably more than most people think. And I know some people probably watching this and wondering, but Jay, you live in a high-rise condo. Should I avoid high-rise buildings? Here's my opinion, and I'm not an engineer, but I do believe in asking questions before you buy and before you rent. Ask about the construction quality. Ask about the building codes. Ask about inspections. Ask them how old is the building. And don't assume that every building is built the same. Doing your homework or doing your due diligence isn't being paranoid. You know what it is? It's being a smart homeowner or an investor. So here's what I learned after living here for 5 years. Prepared people aren't fearful people. They're practical people. Preparing for an earthquake doesn't mean you're expecting one to hit tomorrow. Let's hope not. Just like having health insurance doesn't mean you're gonna get sick tomorrow. What it does mean is that you're ready if life decides to throw something unexpected your way. And that's one of the lessons I've learned over the years. You become more self-reliant, you think differently, you prepare differently, because your old support system, it may be thousands and thousands of miles away. So I'll leave you with this. This video is not to try to make you second guess of moving to Dominican Republic. It absolutely is not. If anything, I still believe moving here has been one of the best decisions that I've made in my life. And if I can do it all over again, I'll do it tomorrow. But living abroad is not about pretending challenges don't exist, because they do. It's about understanding them, then preparing for them, and then getting back to enjoying your life. So if you're living here already, maybe this video will inspire you to put a little emergency kit together this weekend. Or if you're thinking about moving here, try adding emergency preparedness to your relocation checklist. And not because you're scared, it's because you're thinking smart. I'd rather spend 30 minutes preparing for something that never happens than 30 seconds wishing I had. As always, if you found this video helpful, give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Let me know in the comment section if you've ever experienced an earthquake. What did you do in those moments that the earthquake was happening? If you're thinking about moving to Dominican Republic and you want to know what your monthly budget is going to look like, I created what I call the DR cost of living calculator. All you have to do is plug in your numbers. It's gonna give you an average of what your monthly expenses will look like. Link in the video description below. And if you're interested in investing in real estate, go to our website, drinvestinglive.com, or click the link in the video description below that says, I want to invest in real estate, and my real estate advisor will be in contact with you. Also, I got 2 newsletters, Live Your Best Life newsletter and DR Insight Real Estate newsletter. You're gonna love them both. Links in the video description as well. And guys, remember, always keep your goals at the forefront of your mind. Always live in the present, because that's the only way you're gonna live your best life. And we out. Peace.